Hello, everybody. So now we're going to work on some problem solving with robot arms. I'm going to use rubber cement. I got some rubber bands, some twisty ties, a straw that's flexible, scissors, X-Acto knife. So that's what I'm using. Now, if you have a straw that you're going to use, it might not bend the way you want it to. And so the first thing I did was, well, if I don't have a flexible straw, or it's not bending the way I want it to, let's work with just using straws and getting a joint. So what I've done here on my prototype, now on prototypes, I'm not trying to be really fancy with them, I'm just trying to get the idea together. So I had the idea that if the straw was just cut straight, I wouldn't be able to really bend it. If you think about your elbow might go something like this and then close. So what I did was I cut the straws at an angle so that if on the robot arm, this is the top arm and this is the bottom arm could move back and forth, okay? And if these were straight, top arm, bottom arm, sorry, they won't bend very easily. They'll kind of slide or break off. So my first thought was, let me do that. When I cut them, this straw wanted to split. And so I realized that if it was going to split, I would need to put some tape around it to support it. So if I was going to be putting these two pieces together and they weren't strong enough, I would reinforce this joint before I did anything else. Now, at first I thought, well, I can take a twisty tie, straighten it out, stick the twisty tie in there, put the twisty tie here, and you get the message. And at the ends of the twisty tie, I could just make a loop. Well, there were several to keep it from coming out. There were a couple problems with that. First of all, the twisty tie, wasn't really strong. The twisty tie wasn't long enough. So I wasn't super thrilled with that idea. So then I thought, well, what if I put a rubber band through here? And once the rubber band went through, that would give me the elasticity. So the twisty tie, it's kind of doesn't have the movement I need. But I had a problem getting the rubber band to go through. So what I did was I took a twisty tie and just looped it at the end of the rubber band, closed the loop, made like a hook, right? And I put it in the top arm. Let me get this straight. Put it in the top arm, put it through the top arm, pull it through. Let me get that going. And when I pull it through, I have to be careful that I don't pull that loop through. So I'm just going to stick something there. It could be a twisty tie. It could be another straw that you're sticking through there, just to hold it, okay? So I'm doing that, and then I have this expandable loop, and I'm putting it here. Now, I still wasn't super thrilled with this because let me get that straight so you can see it, because I felt like, it bended nicely, and it has some stretchability, so it could take some stress. And if I needed to attach a hand, I could pull out this nifty little, elastic loop to put a hand onto. So I liked this movement. I liked that it would give me a loop on either end that I could work with, and it gave me tension. The straws started sliding inside of each other. Wasn't thrilled about that, but it gave me the idea that maybe I need a bead there in the middle. Well, once I started thinking about, well, I could put a bead in the middle, I thought another way to do this is to just put a rubber band through a bendable arm. Now on this bendable arm, because this is not open, it's just the straw that's bending, I thought, well, maybe let me go back to that twisty tie, but my twisty tie wasn't long enough. So what I did was just twisted two of them together, went like this, went like this. So then I can bend this around, and it has a pretty good movement. I mean, I don't know how much weight it would take, because, maybe if I put a hand on one end, a robot hand, it might weight it down. But pretty easy solution to that is just take a second twisty tie, and reinforce it with a second twisty tie. If I have 2 twisty ties in here, then that arm's going to really be able to support a lot more weight. I could play around with the idea of both a twisty tie and a rubber band going through there, because if I did, say I wanted the twisty tie to connect to the upper arm, because I needed something metal, you know, a little stronger. I didn't want to stretch at the arm. Oop, my twisty tie's not long enough. Imagine it then. Here, let me do it this way. So if the rubber band sticks out here, say at the wrist, I would have some tension, some stretchability to attach something there. And then on the other end, I could have something, you know, a little stronger, a little bit more wire-like. Now, of course, you could use wire. I just had twisty ties around, you know, so I was using that. I noticed that when I did this, that the bend was great, but these straws were really splitting open really easily. So if I tried to do too much to it, the straw would just pop open. So I thought, well, I need to reinforce the upper and lower arm, so to speak. So what I did on this one was I just took several straws and I went ahead and split them, because that was what was going to happen. And what I did then was I just took one straw that I split and put it on top of another straw, and then another straw that I had split. Let me find the split here. Another straw that I had split and put it in here. And so, you know, I end up having like 3 thicknesses, and this was super strong. I also like this idea because if I have 2 of them that are split, or 3 of them that are split, I could create a telescoping straw. So if I needed more length or less length, I could really easily adjust this to be longer or shorter, and I could still, where the split was, insert the elbow, so to speak. So this part here would be maybe 3 straws thick to give it extra strength, and then I'd have another 3 straws thick here, and I'd have the bendable joint. Where these straws split open, I might need to tape it, so that just a clean piece of tape around there so that the straws don't come out. So once I started playing around with rubber bands, twisty ties, I worked out the idea of a joint. I worked out the idea of making the straws stronger. And then I thought, well, okay, so now I have rubber bands and twisty ties and straws, and I'm getting my main movement, but I want it to look like robot, not like kindergarten stuff. So it would be cool if this was more metal looking. Well, that is actually pretty easy to do. What I did was I took some foam core, and I took my rubber cement, and I put the rubber cement on the foam core, just let it dry, no hurry. And then I took the rubber cement and put it on some aluminum foil. Wait for that to dry, stick my foam core directly down on the aluminum foil, turn it over, and I get this really great metallic surface. And I mean, it has a few air bumps in it that I could burnish out, but it goes around the corners real nicely. I could burnish this and clean it up. So I really like that aluminum foil reflective aspect to it. So the first thing I tried was, well, let me see if I could do that to a straw. So what I did was I painted the straw, paint the aluminum foil, put the straw down, and just rolled it. That I liked a lot because the aluminum foil created this really simple scene, and I just took a kind of random piece of aluminum foil, and when I rolled the straw that had contact cement on it like this, I just rolled it to get it on there really good, and then where I had the extra edges, I just kind of pulled those edges off, and it tore right off. So, I'm like, okay, cool, I can get like a metal looking tube out of a straw. And then I thought, well, what about this bend? Like, I can definitely get it straight, but this bend, it'd be cooler if that could be metal too. Well, I tried that, and what I have here is where I put the aluminum foil around the straw, and then I tried to put it around the bend. And the first problem I had was if the straw was straight and it had aluminum foil on it, when I bent it, it would pop the aluminum foil here, like it would break the aluminum foil. And so I thought, okay, let me put the aluminum foil on when it's bent like this, because that would be the largest, the biggest curve that I need to cover with the aluminum foil. And then maybe when I straighten it out, the aluminum foil will spring in there. It didn't work. It looks horrible. Like whenever I bent it, the aluminum foil peeled off of that bend. And it's like, okay, that's a design flaw there. So I thought, well, what I would do then is I would make 2 tubes that had the aluminum foil on it. And then I would just take this bend and I'd do something else with it. Maybe I would leave it white. I mean, you can always use spray paint. Maybe I will put red fingernail polish on it, to make it like that. To make it red and look like a robot joint. So what I would do here would be, with the way I did it before with the twisty ties and the rubber bands, I would do that and maybe make this center part a different color. Well, I'm kind of happy with that. It's something, but I started thinking these are cool for tubes, but they look kind of like skinny arms. Like I wasn't real pleased with the thickness of this. So I thought, the width of it. And so I thought, well, maybe this metal tube could go on something else, like a piece of foam core, and look like it was a rod welded to something. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try this. I take a piece of foam core that's, about the same size. Now this is just a prototype, so I'm not getting too uptight. And I took my knife and I made a groove in it. And all I did here was when I took my knife, I used my knife at an angle. So again, bring your knuckles up, keep your fingertips down. But I put the knife at like a 45-degree angle and did this, and then did an angle like that so that my knife is, angled. And dug it out. I had to kind of dig a little bit. It was a little rough. So I took a pencil, and I want to scribe it there or burnish it there. So I just take a pencil and smooth that out. Well, now I've put rubber cement on here, and I put rubber cement on here. So what I'm going to do now is I put it all the way around. I'm going to put the rubber cement here and see how great it sticks. Like you can really see the way it sticks there, and you can smooth it out. Okay, so now I want it to go around the edges really well. Since I want it to be nice here, I'm going to cut off the excess aluminum foil. And I'm also going to cut it so that I can get a good fold here. Now, I had actually showed you that in a previous video, like what happens when you get to corners. I don't want this aluminum foil to wad up. I want it to be nice and metal looking, like I've got metal tabs or it's been soldered, welded. So I'm cutting this here. Now, I have put rubber cement on the edges of the foam core. Like I just coated this with rubber cement. I did about half an hour ago. I mean, you can rubber cement stuff and then just walk away. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as I fold it over, really smooth it, okay? If you're not used to working with this, I'd highly recommend starting from the center and working one way and center working the other way. It will get your bubbles out, your air bubbles. If you go like this in one direction, sometimes it'll skew the aluminum foil and it won't go cleanly. But if you go from the center out, it really makes a big difference. So center out. And I'm going to do this one on the edges. So now I have some really cool kind of clean metal edges. Since it's a prototype, I'm just working out my problems, so I'm not going to get too uptight here, but I am going to see how smooth I can make it. So I'm setting it into that groove, and I'm just lightly pressing. It's like no big deal. And I'm coming around here. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way, I put it on the back and wrapped it around, is because I know that my metal straw piece will be going in here and covering up any seams I've got. So that's why I did it this way. So what I'm going to do here is now I fold it over again, work from the center out, because I got a little bump there. Center out, press it in, got it from here, from the center out, center out. I am noticing that as I get to the edges, I'm getting a little bit funky there. So in my final version, I'm going to have to watch that. I might, try a couple of prototypes where I'm just seeing what the bend is. But you really can get this burnished, which means you kind of just take something else. Here, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife. Be careful with it. And that's burnishing. I'm just, smoothing it out a little bit. And I'll burnish it again here in the center. Well, if I then take my pieces of straw that have been covered and I glue them in here with rubber cement, pretty simple, you don't need a lot of rubber cement, okay? A thin coat. So I'm gonna do this. Now, rubber cement, if it gets on the edges, when it dries, you can just rub it off. You won't have like glue residue. So that's why Elmer's glue is really pretty bad. It slides all over the place, and when you have glue residue, you're stuck with it. You can't get it off. The nice thing about rubber cement is once it dries, you can just rub it where the excess is, and it will come up. So I would let this dry. I do an assembly line, do all my parts, rubber cement them, and then when I put it together like this, now I've got what looks like a tube on a piece of metal. I can then take my hook that I've got, my twisty tie hook, or it needs to dry. I work that a little fast, that's why it's sliding. I can then come in here, then this, put this back in, put my, if this was designed properly, I'm just, have parts here. I would fit the bendy part up into here. I didn't let it dry, so it's going all over the place. And so if I do that in parts, I would then make a second part here that looked like this, and then I'd have a pretty cool movement there, right? So it does look really metallic when you do it real cleanly. If you wanted to have that kind of retro colored metal, there's several things you can do. If you took nail polish, like let's say you want it to look like red metallic, you could paint the aluminum foil with nail polish, and this would then look like it was, kind of a glowing metal. You can also sometimes use Sharpies or other markers, but they have to be permanent, and that's a little touchy. Obviously, I would put the red fingernail polish on this, if that's where I wanted it, and put this here. Well, I thought I had some pretty cool ideas here with how things might bend or move, and so then I thought, well, what are some of my other options that I couldn't use? For instance, I realized that this right here where the arm might attach to the body might be a problem. So I saw this bottle cap, and I thought, well, what if I took a bottle cap and I poked a couple of holes in it? That was a nail and hammer. When you do this, like poke holes in anything, it can be really useful to get an old piece of styrofoam. And you put this on the old piece of styrofoam and then put the nail into it, and the nail will go into the styrofoam and you'll feel it when you've gone through it. So what I did here was I used the twisty tie hook idea with the rubber band, and I actually had 2 holes here because I wanted it to be really clean. So let me separate this. It's almost like it's a button, right? So I have 2 holes here, and because I'm going to tie this into the body somehow, that's why these are in the inside. So I take a hook, go through here, take a hook, go through here. Now what I can do is I want to hold these so they don't, I'm going to put it like this. I don't want these to slip through the hole, the rubber band end. So I'm going to just take a twisty tie and put them around the ends of the rubber band so that they don't go through and make me frustrated. Now, well, I'm frustrated now maybe, right? Okay, let me twist that. Okay, so that's my stopgap, right? If I pull this part out now, it's going to be pretty strong because in this case it's doubled up. I can then take the twisty tie on the end of this put the twisty tie loop through the rubber band, bring it down. So I've got a twisty tie hook on a rubber band. Then I slide the twisty tie, I'm going to move that to make it easier. I slide the twisty tie into the straw, pull this in, boom, and you'll see I have a very clean movement here. That then I have a shoulder to put on the body of the robot. So this allows me to have some movement here, but also some strength. And I like kind of how this makes the upper arm move away from the body of the robot, because if the arm is attached directly to the robot body, it's gonna, if I have an arm attached to the robot body, you know, it's gonna slide against the body and I might get some drag on it. There's ways to fix that, but you know, I'm thinking, well, if I do something like this, then I poke a hole through the foam core, pull the rubber bands with the twisty tie through the foam core, and I've got this kind of nifty shoulder feel. Now, this could be covered with aluminum foil as well, and this right here, the joint, it's not too bad. I mean, it's pretty clean, but I could also put a button there, not a button, a bead there, or do something a little different. I might look for, like, instead of rubber bands, hair ties, because sometimes hair ties are like a nice clean black and elasticized. So that could be, you know, some nice movement. The other thing I like about this that I came up with is that if I wanted to put a piece of foam core here to make a bulkier arm, I can still figure out, hold on, let me get it. There we go. See, it still will accommodate a little bit of width there. And, you know, I'd have to work that out, but at least I've got a basic movement. It's strong enough to attach through a hole to the body. So, you know, prototypes, that's how we're working out the problems. It's like, well, how do I make it bend? How do I make it strong enough so it doesn't split, like telescoping the pieces inside of each other to reinforce it. So I split it, let me get that. How do I make it so I can make it, you know, lengthen, like I might need to adjust the length a little bit to the body. How can I make it not look like a straw? How can I integrate it better into my design? And so I feel like I've worked out a few things, and have saturated a lot. So once I've saturated, I'm incubating, right? Incubation is when you kind of figured things out and you're like, I need to walk away from this. So the next stage after saturating, trying out a lot of stuff, thinking about it in different ways, is you kind of let it go into your unconscious and you walk away from the project. So I open up a drawer in my kitchen and I see this spork that I got from somewhere. You know, it's like a plastic spoon and fork together, and I see these big straws. And I was thinking, well, you know, I haven't really worked out what the hands are going to be like. I really like what the arms are going to be like. Like this, I think, has some possibilities, but I don't have hands, so I still have that. And I thought, well, what if I found a big straw? Like, that could be cool. I might have to use 2 rubber bands, 3 rubber bands, a couple of twisty ties because it's so much bigger. But then I looked at this and I thought, oh, cool, the sporks fit right in there, you know, like arms or hands. And so if I did something like that, I know that I could make this look metallic, and I could probably make the hands look metallic as well, or I could paint them another color. So, you know, I thought that had some cool possibilities. I saw some red tape, and I thought, well, you know, I needed to kind of maybe add some detailing in, or taping a joint could be useful. Maybe I need to put a stripe on something. This is a plastic electrical tape. So if I wanted to, for example, take something like this and add a red line to it, like just as a detail, you know. It is decorating, but now the other thing on this is actually could be structural, because maybe I want to, you know, put a couple of red lines here as though there's, you know, red lights or something, or warning labels on it. So I could take this red tape and make this stronger and add some cool, graphic element to it. The red tape also, since it's plastic, sticks to plastic really great. And I could take this, and since I had a problem with strength on my straws, I could use this plastic tape to roll around and strengthen that straw. So, the fact that the tape has really nice clean edges to it, the fact that plastic sticks to plastic, I kind of like this idea as well of, using this tape as a skin on the straw. And I might really like to use this idea this way, so it looks like I've got some kind of, cool, sorry, let me roll that, cool mechanical tube there for an arm. Besides straws, I was thinking, well, what else can I use to strengthen this with? And I see that I've got some chopsticks, and I could put some chopsticks in here for the upper arm, because chopsticks are pretty easy to break, right? So if I needed something a lot stiffer on the arm, what if I broke off some chopsticks and put them right up to that elbow, and then these chopsticks will really hold a lot. I could, for example, take this chopstick, put it in the straw, tape the spork, as they call them, to the chopstick, pull that back up into the straw, and I've got a hand that, will not be moving. It's really structurally nicely in there. If the chopstick didn't fit very well, I could use the tape to bulk up whatever's inside the straw. So if I take this tape, cut it, put the spork upon this, wrap it so that it will hold it, and then if it's wiggling inside of the straw, I would just keep wrapping stuff around here, maybe wrap some paper and then tape it, and make it so that it would fit the straw. See, now that right there is a nice tight fit. This can rotate now. Like, I like the idea that the hand of the robot could rotate, but it's not going to go anywhere. Like, it's really tight in there. So then I could take my robot body, think, okay, well, I'll cut this for the elbow maybe, and I'll cut another piece for the shoulder, and I kind of like the way that this could create like a robotic effect. So if I don't want to cut this straw, we kind of use these big straws for different things. So if I cut it here and have a bend to it, like this, it would be kind of cool to have this robot arm, robot hand that could move like that. But you can't really take it out. I could probably figure out, I don't know, I could pull it out a little bit. So now I'm thinking, well, what if I took a rubber band? Well, my rubber bands are two things, sorry. Let me do this. I'm going to take a rubber band here, tighten it on there, and maybe then when I put it up inside of here, I could use that rubber band to, I could use this end of the rubber band up in here to attach to an elbow. So, I could attach different things inside of this to prevent this from pulling out. Like the rubber band might come up to here and hook to something, so that when I pulled it, I'd have a little stretch, but it couldn't really come out. There would be something anchoring it. So, whether or not you use these bamboo skewers are really useful for a lot of stuff. They have a lot of flexibility. They're easy to cut, and they also do a great job of poking through things. So one of the things that I could do here is, if I want, see, I just pierced that pretty easily. If I want to attach the arm to the body, I could take this, take my previously designed arm, attach this in here with a bunch of glue, right? And then I would take, here, So I've got a side of the body, a shoulder, an arm. Then this stick could go through the body, poke through the other side of the body, and I would have this really nice inner rod here to support something. Like, let's say I needed to attach the head or attach a battery pack. So if I was going to have another side of the body here, like that, see, it will reinforce the body itself, but it gives me something to attach things to here. If this is too loose, you can always use two of them to put it through. So, you know, I like this because I can then take a rubber band, for example. I would cut this off. I would cut that off there, right? I could take a rubber band, attach it to this bar. The rubber band would keep things from sliding through the hole, and then this rubber band could affix to whatever I decided I wanted to use. Like if this had let me do this around here. Sorry. Okay, there, it's easier for you to see. I forget, when I do this camera, it's upside down and backwards for me, so it's sometimes hard to do this. So if I had something like this, I could then put a twisty tie in here, and just as I did before, attach the rubber band to the twisty tie, hide this joint with a bottle cap, and I'd have a, you know, arm that would move, and be kind of a cool, weird shape, okay? Now, what I just did on that was incubate. So I saturated by trying a lot of different techniques, and I was kind of focused on trying my different techniques. And then I kind of got fed up with it and think, I'm just like, all right, I solved some problems, but I know there's going to be other problems. So you walk away after saturating, you start incubating. And incubating is, you open up your kitchen drawer, or you undo a loaf of bread, or you are looking around and see that. And you kind of start seeing things that will work for you. And then on incubating here, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. It is that playing around that you like to do. This playing around that you like to do will be way more effective if at first you kind of focus on one part and saturate. Like, how many ways can I solve this one problem? Not the whole problem, just one little problem. And what happens is once you solve this one little problem, how do I make an arm? Then when you walk away from it, your brain wants to solve any loose ends. Like, it'll bother you if you haven't solved any loose ends. So if you saturate on one detail, walk away, and just start randomly playing with stuff, when you come back, this whole bigger project will work better. Your incubation, where you're playing with it and you're just letting ideas kind of percolate, it will be better if you saturate first. And when you incubate, you'll start getting the big picture because you've really focused on a detail. If you try to play around with the big picture first, I know some people are like, well, that's how I like to work. But if you find yourself incubating first, I'm just going to play around, see what happens, a lot of times you end up with unfinished projects because the devil is in the details, as they say. So my recommendation on this is to just take one little area, problem solve it 5 or 6 ways, walk away, and then your brain will kind of be looking for things to dream up, and then this is a good time to play. I hope this gave you some ideas. I'll be doing some more recordings for you to help out. Perhaps you have some other ideas as you are watching this, so I would like for you to sketch it in your sketchbook and have it available for our next session. Bye.